Thank you all so much for being here with us today. We are so excited to have Greg and Andrea with us. Greg and Andrea are with Primerica and are going to share some really great, helpful tips about budgeting and what does that look like and how can you help empower your family and different things like that. So we're super excited. Just super quick, my name is Vicki Lehman and I'm the Community Engagement Specialist at Child Care Answers. We are the local child care resource and referral agency for Hamilton, Hendricks, and Marion counties. We do a lot of work with families, helping them find childcare, helping families navigate childcare in general, offering workshops, different things like that. Thank you all so much for being here with us today, and I'm going to hand things over to Greg.
Awesome. Vicki, thank you so much for having us. Again, my name is Greg Gormong. I'm a division leader with Primerica Financial Services. Now, just to put everybody at ease, we don't need another small T sales pitch, but what we're trying to do is empower individuals with knowledge and resources to help them out. Actually, Vicki and I, it's been like a long little trail here. I think a couple of years ago, we had briefly met. We may have even met at the Indie Latino Expo. That's how I got involved with Child Care Answers and reaching out to other child cares, kind of got in touch with her. Things were moving, obviously pandemic. We had to do 180s back, reach back out to each other, and we're working together now to present this information here. How I got involved with childcare was actually my daughter was at a local preschool and just started talking to them. And they're like, well, we have some things, but not really a game plan. And I said, well, if I could help you put together a game plan, that would be beneficial. And they said, yes. So we've reached out to various groups across Indianapolis. And what I've done is I've partnered up here with Andrea Davis. She'll tell you her story, but we're very good with each other as teammates because we think along the same lines. We want to help a lot of families and individuals, but we're also kind of a yin and yang because we were putting together this presentation and I was getting the thumbs up and thumbs down there. But that's just kind of my story of how I got involved. I want to turn it over to Andrea to kind of give her introduction before I take back over.
Yeah, thanks so much. And again, thank you, Vicki and Tequila, who I know is not on the call, but she was definitely behind the scenes helping as well. Like Greg said, we just have a passion for, being of service to people and making sure that we're coming alongside them and doing a little bit of hand holding when it comes on the financial spectrum. I would actually come from childcare. I graduated from Ball State, started at Day Early Learning, climbed the chain of command all the way up from classroom teacher to center director. And I just absolutely loved what I did until I didn't. Right. Teacher fatigue is definitely a thing. And I definitely experienced that. And I had made a promise to myself that if I ever got to that point after being in childcare for so many years, that I would step away because, as the center director, that's not good for the teachers, that's not good for the parents, that's not good for the kids. So I reached that point and I actually got involved with Primerica on the client side of things first, because anytime you think about leaving a job or having a career change, inevitably you think about, okay, well, how do I save up 6 months worth of bills? How do I do all these things? And even though I was making quote unquote good money, my husband and I were definitely living paycheck to paycheck. Did not have control of our finances. And so within 10 minutes of the conversation of sitting down with a Primerica representative, I was like, oh, this is what adulting is. Oh, this is, what I should be doing with my money. Oh, and end all be all isn't, the only thing with investments at my job, right? I had no idea what a Roth IRA was. So that really empowered me. And then when I had the opportunity to come aboard part-time with Primerica and transition into a more full-time role, I jumped at the opportunity because it was still my passion of helping people, which is why I got into childcare in the first place. It was just in a completely different vehicle. And so now I get to be the person that comes in, helps families really take control of their finances. And I just absolutely love what I do again. So I'm super excited to be here, super excited to present the information with you guys, because again, this stuff should have been taught in the school systems and it just wasn't. My parents, you know what your parents know. My parents always told me, make sure you're saving for the future, but they didn't know to tell me anything outside of the 401k at work, right? That doesn't make my parents bad people. They also didn't teach me Spanish. They didn't know Spanish to teach me, so I didn't learn it. And it's the exact same thing with financial literacy. So I'm super proud of everybody who's on this call, because you're already taking one step forward and wanting to learn how to budget, wanting to learn how to take control of your finances. So super excited to be with you guys today.
Okay, obviously in the interest of time, we'll go ahead and start with the presentation. So what we like to do is take complex financial ideas and bring them down to more bite size so they're easier for us to handle. We consider ourselves a full financial service, but you kind of need to have the building blocks of where you need to start out at. And the biggest one right now, particularly coming out of a pandemic and all the things that are going on, is becoming debt free. So just taking the myth out of becoming debt free. And that means different things to different folks. My generation, it was big on credit cards. Sign up for the credit card, you get the free t-shirt, the 2-liter bottle of pop. Generation now is student loans, hospital bills, but it all affects all of us and is a great weight on our shoulders. Just taking the myth out of it, the biggest threat to our financial security is debt itself. And believe it or not, debt has an acronym, and that stands for don't ever buy things that you don't need. And we've all been in that situation, but sometimes we need the little reminders every once in a while. Uh-oh, I popped this one in here. I like this one. This is from the American Enterprise Institute. There's a new rule out there. It's not a booming economy when, obviously last year was a down economy. This year, everything's supposed to be roses, but wait a minute. Real wages are lower today than they were in 1973. Wow, that was a good year though. Nearly 80% of people live paycheck to paycheck. That first week we're living high on the hog, but that second week we're scrambling to make it until Friday. 62% of jobs can't support a middle-class family. This isn't the days of my grandfather who worked on the railroad all his life. My grandmother was a homekeeper. Everything was hunky-dory. They lived a great life. And in fact, I just saw a Facebook post that all the way up until the 80s, that Al Bundy was able to support his family on a single income. And right now, we just aren't able to do that. More dual families have income. Some people work in 2-3 jobs. 140 million Americans are either poor or low income. That's half of America, folks, that are struggling to pay their debts. And because that burden's so heavy on them, half of older Americans have zero retirement. So literally, you're going to work forever. And debt is a serious problem. So I just want to show you some stats here. Just 40% of Americans can pay an unexpected $1,000 expense. Just think, we live in Indianapolis, the pothole capital of the world, that chews up tires, rotors, suspensions on cars. And in fact, this week, my wife calls me and says, I've blown all 4 tires on my car due to the road. I don't know how, but anyway, I had the funds to be able to take care of that. Otherwise, we're going to have to wait till she made it till payday to get that taken care of. But just having that burden off your shoulders. U.S. households with debt carry an average credit card balance of $6,200. Again, like I said, credit cards was a big thing when I was growing up. Still, it's now 0% interest. Get 3% back. And as they say, the big print giveth, but the fine print always takes away. And when you look at those fine print, it really makes you suck in your gut. There were nearly 750,000 personal and business bankruptcies nationwide in 2019. People just throw up their hands and say, you know what, I'm throwing in the towel. I got to start over because the situation I am in is so bad. So is your debt so high you can't save? Well, do you use credit cards to pay bills? Yes. And what that does is now the credit card companies are in charge of your light bill. And you can understand what those interest payments, how that hurts you. You carry a revolving balance each month. I'll pay it off. I promise I'll pay it off each month, but you don't always pay that off. It just keeps recurring and recurring. And we've all been in this boat. Occasionally or frequently miss a payment on your mortgage, credit card, or monthly bill. That's more debt, but it also affects your credit, which we'll talk a little bit later. And folks, I've talked to a lot of individuals feel like they'll never get out of debt because they don't have a game plan, a roadmap, a light at the end of the tunnel for them. Here's a good one. I liked it. Was adults really drilled in that stop, drop, and roll in our heads, but didn't teach us how to balance a checkbook. I have never once been on fire, but I've been in debt for years. Riddle me that one. You know, the banking industry on your checkbook. You know, I didn't figure out how to balance the checkbook till you started getting some NSF fees, and that $35 really punches you in the gut. But again, never have I been on fire, nor had my house on fire. So maybe priorities is where we need to kind of reevaluate. And here we go, taking control of that, paying yourself first. Now, what does that mean? Well, taking care of what gets you through. So paying off your light bills, your housing, those things, making sure you got, and then what you have left over is what you're spending on your fun stuff. Unfortunately, most of us spend all of our money on our fun stuff, and then it's gut check time there at the end of the month. Adjusting your priorities. What is more important to you? Taking care of your family or something shiny? Change the way you're thinking. You know, adjusting your lifestyle. One of the good things that came out of the pandemic, we've been cooking a lot more at home just because we wanted to try out some new things. We actually made Arby's roast beef sandwiches at home one time just for something fun. You know, earning additional income. What can I do? If I could pay more on my bills, could I get out of debt earlier? Avoiding the credit trap. What they do that keeps you in debt, hurts your credit score. You know, setting goals and having a plan. Not writing down your goals and be able to follow through with them are just a wish, and wishes can go away very quickly. Everything revolves around this statement here, but Michael Jordan, one of the greatest basketball players ever, you know, get the fundamentals down and the level of everything you do will rise. And one of those fundamentals is getting your finances under control, and then you can move up from there. You know, debt cycle versus the cash cycle. Which one do you live in? You know, being in the debt cycle, your finances are controlled by other people. Do most people, when they go to the mailbox, do they skip and run out there? No, it's kind of a long walk of shame where they go out to find out what bill has been sent to you today. Are you out spending your income? Wow, that hits really close to home. Borrowing to maintain a lifestyle, keeping up with the Joneses. How does that work out for you? Paying off one debt and accruing another. Oh, I'll get this 0% credit card. I'll put all my debts on it and I'll pay that off. Well, in 6 to 12 months, when that interest starts coming in, you're still back in the same situation and farther in debt. How about living in the cash cycle? You control your finances. You're debt free. You don't have any bills and you're paying with cash. So when something comes up, you're like, oh, I have the money for that, instead of borrowing or try to figure out where that money comes from. Investing and saving in assets, you know, creating some generational wealth for you and your family so that you can, oh, if we get all this paid off, we'll go on a trip. We'll be able to do something fun. I'll be able to retire, enjoy myself. And then this is where I'm going to be returning it over to Andrea so I can get a drink.
Yes. So becoming debt-free is definitely possible. And there are so many benefits to it, but the most simple benefit to it is if you aren't having debt to pay on, then you have money to do other things like invest. Invest, go on the trips that you want to do, live the lifestyle you want to live, right? So what we want to focus on is really how do we gain control of the family budget, figure out how to determine wants versus needs, so that way you have more money to put into investing for compound interest, so that way your money is working for you and you're telling it where to go instead of asking where it went. So as we go on to the next slide, there are a couple of easy ways to avoid debt, and that's really figuring out what's a want versus a need. Okay. And what I like to do, the slide says $50, have a 24-hour rule. Mine's actually 75. So again, you have to figure out what works for you and your family. But for me, anything that is above $75, I impose a 24-hour rule. And the reason for that is because we all get in the store and we go, oh my gosh, look at this, or even online shopping, right? We get really excited and then we impulse buy, right? Who can relate to that? Definitely me. And then what happens is we have buyer's remorse, we have buyer's regret. I actually just had an experience of this where I was at a clothing store or a fundraiser, excuse me, and I got really excited about this coat, and it was over $200, and it was a winter coat, and I bought it, and I was so excited for it, and then I was like, oh my goodness, what did I just do? And then of course the justification comes with, well, I'm going to have it forever, and it's great quality, it's for a fundraiser, right? But if I would have imposed that, well, let me think about it, I probably would have still honestly gotten the coat, and that's great. But I would have saved myself a lot of anxiety in the process, right? Because again, even if it is a want, we're not saying don't purchase that want. We're just saying make sure that you're thinking through the process, so you're making an informed decision instead of just swiping the credit card, which I definitely know I fell into that box, right? And eliminating shopping as a hobby is another one that hits really close home to me. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I just like to go to the store and, oh, I'm just going to look at the things that are out. I'm just going to, walk around Target to pick up something. And inevitably you go into Target and spend $500, right? So one thing that really, really helped curb that is I put it into time, right? Like money is one thing, but time is another. And so how many hours of work would it take me to purchase that item? And again, ultimately, sometimes I decided, yes, that's worth X amount of time. And sometimes I was like, you know what? No, I don't think that is. So as a real life example, if you make $10 an hour and something's $50, you can think, okay, is that worth 5 hours of my life to have that item? And again, it's up to you to make that decision, but these checks and balances really help you not have that buyer's remorse and then get to the mailbox, get a bill and go, oh crap, now what am I supposed to do? And especially with the holidays coming up, right? Another way is to help keep track of your spending. You can actually keep physical receipts and go through them at the end of a month. What I actually like to do is what we call a debit card challenge. So at the end of the month, and I don't do it every month if I'm being honest, but I do try to do it every couple of months, is I do the debit card challenge. And I look at my bank statement, and anything that was a want, I put a W next to, and anything that was a need, I put an N next to. And again, I want to reiterate, you get to decide what's a want versus a need. There are a couple of McDonald's transactions where I was like, well, I didn't need to eat out, but I did need to eat. So I didn't have, a lunch packed that day. So what was I going to do? Not eat? So a couple of those made it into the need list versus the want list. But essentially then what you're going to do is you're going to add up all of the wants. And when you catch your breath, because it's always going to be more money than you think, you cut that number in half. And that's where Greg and I can show you something cool that you can do with that money. Because again, we want you to get your nails done, your hair done, go to the movies, whatever it is that you want to do to live life to the fullest. But we just want to help you be responsible with half of that, right? When I did my very first debit card challenge, again, I was living paycheck to paycheck. I was deciding between, do I pay the light bill this month or my cell phone bill? How are we going to make ends meet, right? And I had a quote unquote good job, and I was still living that lifestyle. And I could have swore to you that I didn't have any extra money. I didn't have any extra money for life insurance, even though that I know my husband and I needed it. I didn't have any extra money for a savings account, let alone, retirement, anything like that. I did my debit card challenge, and it's kind of embarrassing to say, but my want column was averaging $800 a month just on food, on eating out, fast food, date nights, going out with friends. It didn't matter. I was averaging $800 a month. I was sick about it, thought that was just an off month. That was just a busy month. No, I did it for 3 other months out of the year at random, and I averaged $800 a month just on eating food. So again, obviously that's a part of my lifestyle that I really liked. We're not going to take that away, but how do I maybe recognize that and then curb that down so I can have a couple of home cooked meals at home, right? So as we go on to the next slide, those are just some really good ways to hold yourself accountable, but still have the freedom to do the fun things. This is kind of a funny slide that just basically iterates. We all know we have the crap that we have, and then here's the crap that we actually need, right? So here is an average household in America today, okay? As you can see on the pie chart, they're basically more just the essentials. Of course, entertainment is in there as well, but you will notice that 56.9%, so basically 57% of the average American household is spending their money on the house. And what the article said about the house is that that's, you know, life insurance, health insurance, your mortgage, car insurance, car notes, debt, student loan debt, medical bills, the list goes on, right? So what Primerica did is, if you really think about it, does your mortgage person typically care about your car note being paid on time? And does your car note person really care about your life insurance? And does your life insurance really care about your debt? And so on and so forth, right? And of course, the answer is no. As long as those companies each get a piece of the pie, they don't really care how you get it or how it happens, right? So Primerica said, well, what if we did care? What if we took a holistic approach to financial literacy, and we cared about the entire person, and we have partnerships in the industry that deal with over half of what people are spending their money on. So we have partnerships, you know, with a home security system. We have partnerships to make sure you're saving money on all of those areas and having the best quality for your family and getting out of debt sooner. And the reason for that is because if 57% of your paycheck is going to these things, don't you want the best bang for your buck with the best quality? And of course, the answer is yes. So as we go on to the next slide here, we're really going to talk about the power of compound interest. And Albert Einstein actually said that compound interest is the most powerful tool in the universe, okay? And this is something that wasn't taught to me in school. And once I learned the rule of 72, I was just blown away that this isn't taught in our school systems, right? Like, this would be more valuable to me than learning geometry, right? So basically, the way that compound interest is it's telling you how long is it going to take your money to double. Because obviously, if you're investing your money, that would be a good thing to know, right? So we can go ahead and go on to the next slide. And as that's getting pulled up, to really make this make sense, it's a mathematical concept that whatever the interest rate is divided into 72 is the number of years it's going to take your money to double. So if I have $1 invested in a vehicle gaining 1%, it is going to take my money 72 years to become $2. So is that crystal clear, or at least clear as mud? So let's take this as a real life example. Let's say that a 30-year-old is about to invest their money. They're going to start saving $200 a month because they know that they need to start saving for retirement, right? So first of all, I want you to think, where are most people going to invest their money? And the answer is the bank, right? Because again, we know what our parents know, and our parents went to the bank to do that. Well, I would challenge all of you, if you don't already know what your interest rate is at your bank, make sure you Google that after this call, or give your bank a call and figure that out, because the national average is 0.07% rate of return, which is less than a percent rate of return. So let's really let that sink in. If we know that cost of living increases by 3% annually, so the cost of milk goes up, alcohol goes up, bread goes up, etc., by 3%, but I'm only gaining 0.07%, at that point, am I gaining money or losing money? And of course, the answer is losing money, because my dollar buying power no longer is keeping up with the rate of inflation. So in this example, we're going to be generous to the banks, and we're going to pretend that they're offering 3%, even though statistically speaking, they are not. And 3 goes into 72. Until you get almost $160,000 for retirement at the age of 67. Now, thinking about the rate of inflation, how long are you staying retired on that kind of money? Of course, again, that's nothing to sneer at. That's good. But again, we know that the buying power that you have with 162,000 today is not going to be that in the future. So maybe you'd stay retired for a couple of years if you budgeted well, but then it's going to be back to work. And I don't know about you, once I retire, I intend to be done. So on the way to the bank, they say, oh, sweetie, if this is going to be your retirement, you don't want to put it in just any old savings account. You want to put it into a certificate of deposit. Again, historically speaking, banks have offered 6%, even though they're not currently. So that's going to be just over 300,000. So that's a far cry better. But again, there is an option where you can get 9 or even 12%. And your money is going to double to about $714,000 at retirement. So if it's the same $200 going into an investment account, doing the same thing, why would you not want to have more money? And of course, nothing can be guaranteed. Because we don't have a crystal ball, we can't see the future. But what we do have is portfolios over the last 100 years that have averaged 12%. And if that's something that you're interested in, we can definitely talk about that at the end. So as we go on to the next slide here, again, when you buy on credit, it's only making the minimum payments, and your new balance each month is the principal plus interest. So I guess what I want to ask is, who do we know from the previous example that's getting 24% or 26%? And the answer is Uncle Visa, Aunt MasterCard, Cousin Discover, right? Because just as much as compound interest can work for you, it can also work against you, because we want your savings to be growing and not your debt. Last year, I'm sorry, not last year, in 2019, banks took in $11 billion in overdraft fees alone. So just let that sink in. The people that are already struggling, already kind of needing to catch up on some things, they overdraft because a bill went through before payday. And now, like Greg said, you get slapped with that $35 overdraft fee. $11 billion was made this way in Americans in 2019. So I'm going to kick it back to Greg to talk about the next section here, revolving debt and fixed debt, and kind of the differences and how you can make that work for you.
Thank you, Andrea. You know, we talked, debt takes many faces, and there's two big ones out there. One is called revolving debt, the other is fixed debt. Well, what's the difference? As you can see in the example here, $17,000 at 18%, paying almost $600 a month. In one scenario, you paid $12,500, including interest. One, you paid $5,370. How did that work? Well, you have to identify what those are. You know, fixed debts are things like a mortgage that you would have on your house, potentially what you would have on your car, a loan from the bank that has a set fixed amount. A revolving debt is something that not only gets interest monthly, but can do it daily. And one of the biggest ones out there right now are payday loans. And those keep dinging you daily until you get that bill paid off. You know, talking about those service fees we just talked about, you know, you get the daily fee. Oh, well, then you're overdrawn for this amount. 3 days you've been overdrawn for this amount. You call in, I want to make a payment via phone. Oh, that's $15 to do that. And it keeps you in that debt cycle. And again, that's where that feeling that you're like, I will never get out of debt. And that, you know, leads to other things, health problems, mental illness, because you don't see the light at the end of the tunnel. And so just for an example here, we make our one little purchase here, and I'll give you an example afterwards. A one-time purchase of $3,000 on a credit card, and you don't put anything else on it. And you can see on a credit card statement, if you pay the minimum amount, they have to put that on there now, how long it'll take you to pay off. So you're like, okay, 10 years, I can live with that. But what you didn't realize is you paid over $2,000 in interest. So that $3,000 payment or purchase has now become 5,000. And in my case, I had a vehicle and I put in a cool sound system for my vehicle. And within about 2 years, I had not paid it off, but guess what? I got rid of that vehicle and I was still paying on this for a vehicle I did not have. So how do you get out of debt? Well, what we talk about is what's called debt stacking, and that can lead to debt freedom. And what it is putting your debts together in a efficient order. And we have a computer program that has an algorithm that puts it together to get you out of debt quicker, sooner, faster, better, all kinds of cool buzzwords. What it does is it takes into account your interest rate and your amount of debt. You know, you must keep making consistent payments on those debts, and it always works best to not accrue any more debts because that'll change your debt freedom date. And this doesn't that sound cool when it says debt freedom date? So debt stacking. All right, here is the big complicated debt stacking, but I'll try to make it bite-sized for you. So you have a retail card you're paying $220 a month on. You have a credit card you're paying $353, car loan $551, credit card $303, mortgage $1,300. So each month you're paying $2,720. Okay, yes, I know that, Greg. How do I get out of debt? So what the program did is it prioritized your bills, and it says, let's pay off the credit card or the retail card first. So you're paying $220 until that gets paid off. Once it gets paid off, you move that down to the credit card number 2. So instead of paying $353 a month, you're now paying $573. Way I kind of look at when most people say, hey, I paid off $220. Now I have $220 in your budget. No, you don't. You're debt stacking. You're stacking until you get them all paid off. I want to give you the analogy of when we used to go down to Florida with my family. We would only stop for gas and food. So we would go. We'd reach Kentucky. We had to get gas, hurried up, peed, ate, jumped back in the car, moved around a little bit, then jumped back in the car, headed down to the next state. And so that's what you're doing here is you are continuing until you get to your goal. But you can see the credit card, instead of $573, you get that paid off, you move it down to the car loan. You know, we've reached Tennessee now. You keep compounding that down, you're paying $1,400 on that credit card. We're now in Georgia. So at the very end, you're paying $2,700 towards your mortgage. Can you imagine how quick you can get out of debt on a 30-year mortgage if you're paying them 1 to 2 times, maybe 3 times what you got going towards them? So that was a lot to swallow here. So I want to kind of show you my example. This is a 48-year-old, and his current situation is if he's just going to pay the minimum payments, he's going to be paying until age 57. He's going to pay out $16,000 in interest payments. So just to kind of give you an idea, that's just what you're paying to PNC Chase Bank to keep them in business. Doesn't go anywhere near your family. So that's 9 years and 2 months paying $1,300. So what the debt stacking program did was it showed Greg how to get out of debt by age 53. There's $6,100 coming back into his pocket. He's out of debt 4 years sooner. And here's what I love to show. Whoops, he takes that $1,300, he invests that in his family, and by retirement, he can have $200,000 in his retirement account just doing the same thing he was doing. Hopefully that was pretty exciting for you because I got one here. I don't want to impress you, but I want to impress upon you how powerful this can be. Oops. This is the exact breakdown on how Greg is going to get out of debt. So you can see his TSP, he's paying him $164. He just got out of debt last month. Yay! So Greg took his family out. We went to Rick's Boatyard Cafe. We got back in the car, started paying more on that PNC card. I'll have that paid off February of 2022. Bayview, you'll see that I'll pay it off next fall. Chase I'll have paid off by Christmas. And then SN Services is my mortgage. I'll have that paid off by 2026. Now, I can't guarantee for anyone, but I really want to show off this one because I'm very proud about this. I sat down with a 53-year-old and a 56-year-old. Their current situation that they were at, they were going to be in debt for another 100 years. They were never going to see the light of day. And in fact, probably have to pass some of that debt down to future generations. They're going to pay $800,000 in interest to various organizations. You know, Bankers Life just got renamed, you know, for $800,000. They might have even got their name put on there. But there's $3,100 of their paycheck is going out to pay these bills that they were never going to see the light of day. I was able to sit down with them, and in 11 years and 9 months, right at retirement, they will be completely out of debt, saving over $680,000 in interest. I hope I got a little reaction from folks. So the next big one that folks like to talk about is their credit score. Are you in the know? You know, do you know your credit score? When most folks, when you ask them their credit score, oh man, it is awesome. But when you go to apply for something, we get the rude awakening. So do you know how much debt you have? Because your debt to income ratio affects what your credit score is. Your debt freedom date. When will I be financially free? And when will that date be? You know, when in your adult life did you feel that you had control over your credit score? I mean, I pay my bills, but I never seem to be getting ahead. You know, a good credit score can determine a lot of things. You know, whether you'll be approved for credit. I mean, you apply for a credit card, you apply for a mortgage, you can be denied because you have a low credit score. You know, what interest rate you'll get on these loans. Sad to say, I sat down with a young gentleman, he was paying 26% on his auto loan. So can you imagine what his debt to income ratio is? The cost of your homeowners and car insurance. Your employers do a soft credit check on yourself. You know, whether you'll get approved for be able to rent a house or apartment. And obviously with the crisis going on right now, people are looking for new places to live and will often unfortunately be denied because of their low credit score. So again, I sat through the program, was able to help myself out. And I know this is a lot of information here, but when the pandemic hit in March of 2020, my credit score was 657, took a big hit. But in the year and a half, I was able to raise it 74 points to 731 just by following that debt stacking program and improving my family's financial situation. Now, again, I can't say that that's going to happen for everyone, but if you see improvement and a better way to be, you feel a lot better about yourself. And since I need to take another drink, I'm going to pass this along back to Andrea to help me out here.
Thanks, Greg. So yes, I hope you guys can hear the passion in both of Greg's and our voices, because when we sit down and do our complimentary financial needs analysis that is customizable and confidential, and show people how to do the debt stacking and get out of debt years sooner. I mean, on average, my clients are out of debt 50 to 60 years sooner. Greg has somebody that's 100 years sooner. And the relief that they feel that there's somebody there coming alongside them, men lie, women lie, but numbers don't lie. So being able to have a comprehensive plan put in place that they can have access to, that's a living, breathing document that can update as life events happen, whether it's buying a house, having a child, anything of those natures. It just gives us such a powerful feeling to be able to empower people in that way and feel so good about what we're doing for our community. So back to talking about credit though, just to give you an idea of what having credit can do or not do for you. So just like Greg said, we've seen a lot of people that we sat down with, their credit scores have taken quite a hit because of the pandemic and just not being able to keep up on things. But by not doing that, they are putting themselves at risk in a lot of different areas. So this is an example of somebody's annual car insurance and just what lenders and creditors look at. So having the exact same car insurance rate If you have very good credit, it's 125.67 on average, so about a month, or I'm sorry, and then $1,500 annually. Or if you have bad credit, you can see that it's almost double that. It is double that and then some for literally the exact same service. And it's just because it's based on your history. So as we go on the next slide, we're going to see the 5 most common credit mistakes, not valuing that we see people make, not valuing your credit, raising credit card limits instead of like paying them down because nobody wants to be at their max, not monitoring and your credit history, your credit score, and then not knowing interest rates and fees associated with your debt. If you are not tracking this and monitoring this, that is something that could be detrimental to your financial future. And 65% of your score is from payment history and amounts owed. Of course, making on-time payments and reducing your balance have a huge impact on your score. And there's a few other factors, but 65% is your payment history and amounts owed. This can affect things like getting a mortgage, getting student loan help, anything of that nature, and putting you at risk to have that bad credit if you're not keeping up with these things. So as we go to the next slide, one of the ways that we help our clients is no matter what the personal debt situation is, you can't afford not to be in the know, okay, because of all the things previously mentioned. So let's go ahead and move on to the next slide here. And one of the ways we combat this is by sitting down with our clients and helping them fill out a detailed budget worksheet. Now, I don't want this page to overwhelm you because there's a lot of words on it, but it's really just breaking down and saying, okay, where is my money going? Because knowing is half the battle. So that way, again, you can make informed decisions. Again, I know we focused on let's budget, let's get out of debt, let's do all these things, but I do want to point out, again, Greg and I want you to live your life. We want you to have things that you want to do. Like I mentioned earlier, going to the movies, going on vacation. So there is a section you'll see there for leisure activities. Because again, it's important to not just be like, I have to get out of debt at all costs and can't do anything fun. No, again, we just want to help you become better financial stewards of your money and help in that way. Here at Primerica, our mission is really a simple one. It's to help families become properly protected, debt-free, and financially independent. And again, we do this by coming alongside families, giving them a financial needs analysis that is specific to them, and really being there to help support them. You know, we are not in a transactional business, we are in a relationship business, and we want to build that relationship with our clients for future to come, to be there for all the big life events and help be that person to help walk through and do the hand holding, so that way people are set up for financial success. We are listed on the New York Stock Exchange. We have, you know, an average of 3.9 million in benefit claims paid every year and 70 billion in asset values with Primerica investments. We've been around for about 44 years now. So while you might not recognize the name, we are definitely well established, have been in the communities, and are just wanting to be there to be of service for other people. So as we go to the next slide, I want to share with you guys a story, and I'm actually going to read it just so I get it right. Greg and I know that many people struggle with their finances, and I was definitely one of those people. As I shared earlier, I was living paycheck to paycheck, and I wasn't accepting that I really needed to make a plan, sit down with a professional, because I thought that I knew everything, right? I thought living paycheck to paycheck was normal. Boy, was I wrong. And so there was always a financial storm around me, and we all have those kind of storms. The only choice that we have is how we respond to those storms, and more specifically, when we respond to those storms. So I'd like to end by reading the story to you about cows and buffalo. Colorado is world famous for the Rocky Mountains. What many people don't realize about Colorado as a state is it is divided almost exactly in half. The western part of the state is the Great Rocky Mountains, and to the eastern part of the state is the Great Kansas Plains. Because of this unique topographical landscape where we have the Rocky Mountains and the plains, Colorado is one of the only places in the world that has both buffalo and cows. When storms come, they almost always brew from the west, and then what happens is they roll out towards the east. Cows can sense that a storm is coming from this direction, so a cow will try to run east to get away from the storm. Now, the only problem with that is if you know anything about cows, they're not really that fast. So as the storm comes from the direction, the storm catches up with them rather quickly. And without knowing any better, the cows continue to try to outrun the storm. But instead of outrunning the storm, they run with it, maximizing the amount of pain and time and frustration they experience from the storm. And don't we think about, isn't that so stupid? But humans do the same thing all the time. We spend much of our lives constantly trying to avoid the inevitable challenges that come along for the difficult circumstances that our very own choices have led us to be in. Now, what buffaloes do is buffaloes are very unique for the animal kingdom. Buffaloes wait for the storm to cross right over the crest of the peak of the mountaintop. And as the storm rolls over the ridge, buffaloes will turn and charge directly into the storm. They run at the storm they run at the storm and they run straight through it, minimizing the amount of pain, time, and frustration they experience from the storm. But it's the same storm. It's just a great metaphor for all of us because even though we're in different places in life, all of us have those storms. So we recognize on the call that not everybody is going to be ready to move forward and have those conversations. But if that is something that you're interested in, Greg is going to put up on our screen our contact information so that you can reach out to us if you would be interested. And, you know, whether you do have your finances and you're like, no, I'm good. If you would like a second professional opinion, just to have a high five to say, nope, you're doing the right thing. Keep doing exactly what you're doing. Or, hey, here's how we could provide value. Please feel free to reach out to us. Either those are both of our cell phone numbers and our email addresses. But we would just love the opportunity to sit down with you and just make sure that you guys are on the correct financial path to really help your family in the future. We also want to really thank Vicki and Tequila again and Childcare Answers for inviting us and caring enough about their community to put on this 4-part series. So definitely be looking for the next dates and topics for what we'll be talking about.
Thank you so much, Andrea and Greg. This was super informative, and I can tell you that I have said many times that I probably didn't need to know algebra. I more so needed to know like how to be a functioning adult and like about insurance and things like that, because you just have no idea.
Well, and there's a reason for that though. There's a reason that in every major city, the biggest tower, the tallest tower is always associated with a bank. So it is my belief, right, wrong, or indifferent, that they don't want us to know these things because how would they make their $11 billion in overdraft fees if you knew the rules to the game?
Yeah, that's a lot of money in overdraft fees. Like Andrea said, be on the lookout because we will be doing some additional workshops in partnership with Primerica and Greg and Andrea. And so be on the lookout for those. Yeah, thank you guys so much for all being here. Have a great rest of your day.